Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. The plan today is to take you through a league with blue-white control. We're going to analyze the play patterns, talk about why we make plays in certain situations, and even going as far as analyzing my mistakes. I don't like just posting when I'm successful, like this is real. So let's do it. So this is the deck that I plan on playing with. I recently posted a deck tech and sideboard guide for this exact 75. If you're interested in that, you should check out the channel, the deck techs and sideboard guides, or on the Pioneer playlist. But it is your classic blue-white control deck. It's removal, it's counter magic with big dumb planeswalkers and Sharknadoes to end the game for us. Our sideboard is rounding out our counterspell suite and removal, but it's also additional threats for the postboard games when they side out their removal. But let's jump into the games. So this first hand's an easy mulligan. There's just like not enough lands. The second hand, I did decide to keep because 2 lands. We put one of these cards back. It's like totally okay. We can play land go for a little while. We're also on the draw, so hopefully we draw the lands. We do draw our lands. So now we have counter magic. We're 1 land away from Wandering Emperor. Can also kill something with March of Otherworldly Light if we want to. I decided to just leave Dovin's Veto up. Ledger can't do that much to us right off the bat. We're going to take this hit from Ledger Shredder as we leave our Dovin's Veto up. We're just going to play our land with the plan on end step marching a Ledger Shredder. I didn't want him to be able to use his mana that he left up, especially after this Crackling Drake. At that point, I decided not to cast March and instead just Supreme Verdict and let's just take the 2 for 1. This does tap us out though, so that's a little awkward. It allows them to pieces of the puzzle, which they were probably playing around Dovin's Veto with. Pieces of the puzzle, what they put in their hand, they put a Consider in their hand and a Treasure Cruise in their hand. At this point, we just play our land and pass the turn and just play comfortably. They play the Consider. It's not worth counterspelling that. And then they take their turn. At this point, I'm like, okay, so we can just very easily end step Shark Typhoon or Wandering Emperor if they do nothing. However, the Galvanic Iteration, we know about the Treasure Cruise, so I decided to counterspell the Galvanic Iteration so they can only Treasure Cruise once. No matter if I counterspelled that or Treasure Cruise, they were still going to be able to fire off one of them. So now we're sitting here. They're just drawing a bunch of cards. We now have no knowns in the entire deck. I do decide to Shark Typhoon and end step just to be able to keep cycling through my deck. The size of the shark doesn't actually matter that much. And at this point, I feel like it's a little obvious they have Spell Pierce. But I do decide to just pass the turn. It's possible I was supposed to, when they tapped out right there, it's possible I was supposed to either cast Wandering Emperor or Memory Deluge while they were totally tapped out. I feel like if I didn't just main phase it, there was that plays, both of them play around Spell Pierce anyway, so meh. I'm not really sure there. Piece of the puzzle again. In response, Memory Deluge to attempt to find a counterspell. We do find a counterspell, but we don't have the mana to cast it. So it does resolve. They hit 2 Arclight Phoenix and also get 2 spells in their hand. So we're about to take some big damage from Arclight Phoenix. And they have actually 9 cards in their hand, which is insane. So we take this damage from Arclight Phoenix, but I mean, I decide not to March because we can just untap March, and that's totally okay. Able to Wandering Emperor 1 away. They too attempt to Fire Impulse their own guy in response to the Wandering Emperor so that it's not exiled and they can bring it back next turn. I do absorb that Fire Impulse though. But now I'm tapped out again, so we get to pass the turn. I do like where I'm at, though. We're at 17 life. They only have 1 Arclight Phoenix. They have a million cards in hand, but they can't counter Shark Typhoon. Teferi Hero, the Dominaria, now gets around Spell Pierce. This Wandering Emperor is probably going to eat it. Yeah, and it does. And they jam in. That being said, I attempt to cast the Teferi, and they Galvanic Iteration Spell Pierce, which is wild. It feels so bad. Holy moly. I probably was supposed to foretell the Saw It coming there. I'm not sure why I didn't do that. And then they man up and I die, unfortunately. That felt like a really, really close game. Even though I was on the back foot the entire time. It kind of feels bad. Not sure what else I could do differently other than just get a big shark. on the turn that the Wandering Emperor was played. Going to game 2, this is a fine hand. The biggest thing for the early games or early turns, especially against a non-aggro deck and a more tempo deck, is to just make sure we hit our land drops so that we can cast our spells and especially cast our meaningful spells. That being said, like hitting the irrigated farmland's nice because we get to cycle through our deck with it, which is the intention right now and right here. So we cycle, we hit another Teferi Hero Dominaria and another Shark Typhoon. Like, this is not looking great. The intention here is to just Shark Typhoon for 1 to continue cycling through our deck on my opponent's end step. They do Ledger Shredder. They play a red land. I do know that there are no mountains in my opponent's deck, and having this Field of Ruin is a little interesting. And we do Field of Ruin the red land and hope to choke them off of red mana. And holding off on the Shark Typhoon, there wasn't really much we could hit there that would make us play differently besides maybe a counterspell. And they... Hold on, I gotta pause it for a second. What did they hit off of this? Yeah, so they take Treasure Cruise, Disdainful Stroke, and immediately cast the Treasure Cruise. So now we're like, things aren't looking good already. They're able to discard the Arc-Light Phoenix off of Ledger Shredder. And they actually play around Wandering Emperor really well there, not attacking, but we don't have Wandering Emperor, so it's totally fine. And the Farewell, if we can get around the counter magic, is pretty solid. We're able to resolve a Teferi Hero Dominaria, which is amazing. It's possible I was supposed to tuck the Ledger Shredder. I don't know. I think it's a little tough to defend my Teferi, but also like I really wanted to leave Dovin's Veto up, which we're able to cash in on here, which is excellent. I think the issue is now they have 2 Arc-Light Phoenixes in their graveyard, and they're just going to jam. And they send all at Teferi, where if I tucked it, then it'd be totally fine. The Farewell obviously gets Spell Pierce, and we are in Trubs at this point. It's possible I was supposed to just Dream Trawler there, because there really isn't anything that they can do about a Dream Trawler. But now I'm on the back foot with the Spell Pierce. Not playing around the Spell Pierce at all there and just choosing to not Dream Trawler was probably very bad. At this point, I just want a big Shark Typhoon blocker. I just really don't want the Dream Trawler to get Mystical Disputed. It's kind of where we're at. At this point, we play our Teferi in an attempt to, bash through this Disdainful Stroke. It's unable to do it. Actually, now that I'm looking back on this game in hindsight, not casting the Dream Trawler in that Farewell turn is like really dumb, because you knew about the Disdainful Stroke and we were gonna have to pump through it no matter what. So that feels really bad. But we're able to leave Mystical Dispute up. However, they were dead to any removal spell, and the Otawara on the Shark token is enough. So we lose our first match of this league. Going into the second match of this league, this hand is pretty great, actually. We have the Censor that we can either cast on something or cycle, into Absorb, into Supreme Verdict, into Teferi Hero Dominaria, which I'm all in on. It's a Gigantha deck. I assume it's just red-green aggro at this point. However, they play Gallia, so it's probably the red-green legendary deck that has been like medium floating around. This is the first time I've actually played against it, though. It seems like a good matchup. I shock in Hallowed Fountain so that we can absorb. I'm not interested in countering the Oath of Nissa. They can just have that. I don't care. We just hit up our Shark Typhoon. We are able to use our mana, which is awesome. Now, we have a million options. This next turn, we can Memory Deluge, we can Wandering Emperor, we can absorb something. Like, things are really, really good at this point. Hey, Beergy, we're just going to absorb it just to keep the board clear and everything be chill. If we hit our land, we can Teferi, and we do, which is amazing. Jam in and play our Teferi Hero Dominaria. Unfortunately, can't really do anything with the mana except for we drew the Censor off the Teferi, which is hilarious. Feels super, super good. Play Domri, which is a little interesting. Creature spells can't be countered, and that kind of sucks. But they don't play a creature spell, so we're actually able to censor the Xenakos, which is hilarious. And they concede. Because we're going to untap with Teferi, and it's hard for, especially creature decks, to come back from a Teferi here, the Dominaria untap. that couldn't have gone better for us. That was like an amazing game. This hand is an easy mulligan. It's only a 1-lander, and we can maybe cycle the Censor, but meh. We mulligan into Censor Supreme Verdicts, plural, and that is pretty solid against the red-green deck. I put back a land because we can trust our deck to draw a land, and then we just get to, like, you know, be able to censor, maybe cycle Censor to try to find the land, and then just have 2 Supreme Verdicts in a row into Teferi. This is good against everything except for a Planeswalker-esque hand. Also, Hajar is pretty good against Supreme Verdict because he can give something legendary, or legendary creature, excuse me. So that's a little awkward. And they play around Censor in a really perfect way here, and are able to apply pressure. So actually, we're in a little bit of danger at this point. We cycle Censor, just try to find our land drops. Unfortunately, now we have like no plays, which is a little brutal, and they play the Domri and keep applying pressure. So now we are really just forced to play Supreme Verdict to only kill 1 creature because they sack Hajar. And we're kind of at our opponent's mercy at this point. They're able to jam in for a whole bunch. We have to follow up with another Supreme Verdict. We get dealt a bunch of damage, and now we are dead to Land Lair of the Hydra. And there's really nothing we could do about that. They decide to not kill us that turn, though, apparently. Even though we were tapped out. I guess we had 1 mana up. What could we have had? I guess March. Okay, they were playing around March. I guess that's fine. But anyway, we're dead. Justice Intervine, so we can cast nothing. We needed a land there, so we can cast the Dream Trawler and stay in it, but that was not an option. So we go to game 3. Game 3, 2-lander, bunch of Planeswalkers we can't cast, Borders we can't cast. We can cycle the Shark Typhoon. I do decide to mulligan that away because it's really important we hit our land drops. This isn't too much better. You know, it's a rough go. I decided to keep it and put back Field of Ruin, though, because we can cycle our Shark Typhoon. You know, we can continue digging. It's not a big deal. And they lead with their Oath of Nissa. Hitting the March, this is a good pickup. Being able to take out most things, especially being able to grab this 2-drop here in a second. I do decide to cycle the Shark Typhoon for 0, just to be able to hit our land drops, hit things that matter. Is a little bit more than having the Shark. And I decided to leave up Absorb to be able to counter anything that they play. In addition to, you know, I'm okay with letting Hajar sit for just a second, especially since we have the removal in our hand. That being said, they attack with a Hajar after we counterspelled, so we're able to resolve a clean Wandering Emperor, which is beautiful. And now we're in like a really cool spot with Bard class, where if they ever try to level up Bard class, we can just march it in response. And then also we're leaving up the cycling irrigated farmland. They attempt to level up, so then we're marching in response. So they just have to like waste a turn while we're just like, you know, chilling out. And we cycle here irrigated farmland just to continue working through our deck. At this point, like, we're in pretty good shape. We're still playing the long game, though. So now we're sitting here with Supreme Verdicts in our hand, but I'm not really super afraid of the BRG. So I just pass the turn, you know, leave up our 3/3, let them commit more to the board, which is totally okay. They just play a Domri and don't really do anything with it. Oh, sorry, Gallia. Whoops, I miscounted mana. My bad. But at this point, it's kind of okay to wipe the board. So I just block to protect the Wandering Emperor. So now we're able to Supreme Verdict while leaving Absorb up and get a 2/2. So we're sitting pretty again, but things aren't super duper great. We are able to absorb the Xenagos, and we can start applying pressure to the Domri with the Wandering Emperor. What's nice is we also have Field of Ruin to stop the Lair of the Hydra if they want to start going that route, which is really nice. But they are able to play their God, which is a little frustrating, but if we block, it loses the devotion, and we are able to play our Dream Trawler. So now we are sitting actually pretty. I don't believe there's a world that we can really lose. They attempt to fight with the God. We're able to protect the Dream Trawler, and now we're going to be able to draw just 1,000,000 cards a turn and apply a bunch of pressure back. And like we're doing great, unless we draw a bunch of lands, so that's a little annoying. I'd be sure to leave one Field of Ruin up, but we cycle irrigated farmland into Elspeth, and this is where the door actually shuts. as opposed to the Dream Trawler starting to shut the door. And that is where they concede. So we are going into round 3 at 1-1. So this is a fine 7. It's not as interactive as I want it to be, but we are able to cycle the Shark Typhoon if we really need to. So we keep the 7. And are sitting here, and they are playing mono white aggro, or mono white humans. So we're just playing our lands. Supreme Verdict is going to end up being pretty okay, unless a Dauntless Bodyguards tells me it's not, or a Thalia delays me. But 1 drop into Thalia just feels awful and is really, really hard for this deck to beat. At this point, I decide just cycling the Shark Typhoon isn't good enough, and we need to actually be able to like block with it. And they are able to Dauntless Bodyguard the Thalia, which is a total nightmare. So now we're at 12, which is just disgusting. And at this point, this is actually puts us to dead on board on turn 4, because we're able to interact literally 0. Whether we Aganjo or Shark Typhoon and block, we are dead. Yay, that was fun. Game 2, this hand I decided to keep, even though it's tap land. If we draw a single untap land, we get to turn 3 temporary lockdown, which is disgusting against that deck. And we have access to censor. So temporary lockdown is really what we're mulliganing for anyway. So I decided to keep the 7. It's a little risky, but I think it's fine. They just go their 1 drop, which is totally okay. We don't hit our land, so that's a little nerve wracking. So we have to cycle the censor to try to find the land for temporary lockdown now. Unfortunately, now we need 2 lands, and we do not hit. However, we hit a censor, we cycled into another land, and now we need a 4th land to be able to play temporary lockdown, or the game is over for the most part, because they're already applying a ridiculous amount of pressure. Unfortunately, I do not hit again. We're able to make disappear a 1 drop, and now it is hit or we die. And we do not hit, so we lose. Fun interactive games. I probably did that one to myself. It's possible that was a mulligan with a double tap land. I don't know. At 1 and 2, the 7's pretty solid. It's a little awkward not having any actual plains or islands for the castle. That's totally fine. You know, we have access to censor. We have the Teferi. We can cycle a Shark Typhoon. We can temporary lock down something if we really need to. I decided to just like, you know, we're just leaving censor up at this point. We take the damage, and then they play Ledger Shredder, so now we can get temporary lockdown value against, like, is it Phoenix or Blue Red Tempo or whatever this may be. So we get temporary lockdown value. It feels great. Being said, we're just playing our lands. I decide to shock in, mostly for the, you know, be able to Shark Typhoon for a little bit more. I don't think our life total is very valuable at the moment. And now we just have counter magic. We're blocking with the shark token. Never mind. But we're sitting on counter magic. We have an uncounterable board wipe. Cycle censor into March to be able to get rid of the homie. And then they concede. I'm not sure why they conceded there. Maybe because they just didn't have anything in their hand or something. I mean, I was in really good shape, but also they didn't have information on my hand. Maybe they just had no threats and just didn't want to play land go with me. But that was a really early concession, I felt like. Going into game 2, I sideboard like it is Phoenix. So we hit our main deck. We hit our opening hand Rest in Peace with like fine cards surrounding it, lands and spells, and we decide to keep. You know, we also hitting the Mystical Dispute, which is just like super gross. It feels real super good. That being said, I decided to just go for the Rest in Peace. If they spell pierce it, then like it means that our Memory Delusion or Teferi aren't being spell pierce, so we just move on with our lives. However, they do Sahelia, so the game is interesting, right? We turn off the Phoenix plan, we turn off the Treasure Cruise, you know, and all of that stuff. But like, you know, we tapped out, you know, and then they were able to play Saheeli. So now we got to play some Magic. You know, this is gonna be a second. You know, this isn't just a just win. You know, they keep making their servo tokens. It's a good thing we kept in some number of Supreme Verdict. You know, they hard cast their Art like Phoenix. So now we're at a point where like we're probably supposed to just Supreme Verdict at this point. But getting this Wandering Emperor out there is really, really solid. They had the card for it, so it's possible the Wandering Emperor wasn't where we wanted to be. Now, if they're unable to have a burn spell, Teferi just gets to sit, which is awesome. and I want to fight over this Crackling Drake, because by fighting over this Crackling Drake, it either gets countered, and we don't care what's going on the board, or it baits a counterspell we don't really care about, because now we have, the Supreme Verdict. Unfortunately, Saheeli's able to minus and still kill the Teferi and draw an extra card with Crackling Drake. So we just wipe the board away. We reset. We still have the Memory Deluge. We have Shark Typhoon. Things are okay, but the Saheeli's getting super annoying, especially that scary, scary minus. That exists. They just jam in. We have Wandering Emperor. We have Shark Typhoon. I think I just decided to Wandering Emperor block here, if I remember right. It gets counterspelled. That kind of sucks. It's possible we were supposed to just Shark Typhoon and then attempt to kill the Saheeli. Yeah, that was probably the play, like almost definitely. But now we're sitting on a really, really massive shark, or we can Memory Deluge into a counterspell, or there's a lot of plays that we have now, which feels really good. They jam. I decide to go ahead and shark for 5. Uncounterable. We get to cycle through our cards, block a servo. Feels really good, and now we can actually attack the Saheeli and begin stabilization, if possible. And Saheeli goes down. And now we have Memory Deluge, Neville Supreme Verdict, with both castles on the battlefield. Like, we are doing great, especially since they didn't really do anything. And at this point, they just concede. So, boom! 2-2. Going to the last round, seeking that 3-2. So, opening hand is totally fine. It's good against aggro, good against control. We have the counter magic, and we have the removal. So decide to keep it. It is awesome. They go Island, Mausoleum Wanderer, so it's either Mono Blue Spirits or Bant Spirits, likely Mono Blue, which temporary lockdown is disgusting against. I would like some other threats. Combat Research is pretty solid against us, though, so that's a little scary. I'm not down with that. I decided to play a Ganjo. They don't have a lot of non-creature spells, but being able to stop some of those non-creature spells, it feels good, especially spells that let them draw a card. So we just counter this Curious Obsession and move on with our lives. So now we just temporary lockdown to try to stop what's going on, especially since we have a second one. It gets Spell Pierced. Okay, so that's a little awkward. So maybe it's a Blessing in Disguise. Maybe they'll play another card on turn 2, but they don't. They just draw a card past the turn, which is a little rough. I plan on leaving counter magic up here. So what's dope about this play is that they commit something to the board. We Wandering Emperor. If it gets counterspelled, we can just untap Temporary Lockdown, which it does. So it kind of almost baits a counterspell. It feels weird baiting a counterspell on a Planeswalker, but it baits the counterspell, and then we're able to untap Temporary Lockdown. I shocked in the card, so Spell Pierce is no longer a thing, and then foretell the Sot coming. So we're doing great at this point, but they Spectral Sailor and start drawing a card. So the Spectral Sailor is nuts against us, is very, very good. Foretell the other thing, and at this point, they draw a card, jam in with the Spectral Sailor. We're not doing awesome. Shacklegeist, sure, we can absorb that. Like, that feels fine. I'm like 90% sure I misplayed with one of these Foretell cards, actually. Oh, here we go. Oh, no, that wasn't the misplay. I think if I remember this match right, they play Ascendant Spirit. We just absorb there, and now we have 2 Foretells hanging out. Supreme Phantasm isn't something we really need to worry about, and we hit our Shark Typhoon. So things are going really, really well. We just have a 1/3 we have to deal with. If they play anything, we foretell. If they don't play anything, we just make a 3/3 Shark. They jam in. We make a 3/3 Shark. Go to block. We even hit the Wandering Emperor. They flash in the Spectral Sailor and draw cards. So that kind of sucks. Try to jam our Teferi. It gets Geistlight snared again. At this point, it's possible I should have attacked with that Shark. I don't know. It's also really possible I'm playing a little too fast and loose with all these foretelling cards. That means that I think this is the mistake, right? Okay, so this is what happened. So I was actually, what happened here is I was actually chatting with somebody else in the room, and I went to March. Not that that's an excuse. I'm calling myself out on this misplay, misclick, whatever you want to say. I went to March it. He slipped out the back, and I just clicked OK and let it resolve rather than saw it coming. And that one mistake makes it so I don't close out this game. Because if I'm able to get rid of this, the game is pretty much over. Especially since I have even another Sot coming foretold. But now we gotta play a super long game because he's gonna draw a million cards off of this. So that one tiny misplay is gonna make this game like really, really brutal. But I like I said at the beginning of the video, like we get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that was really, really ugly. You know, it feels bad, like the straight up misclicks, not paying attention situations. We're unable to block that because you can just power it up and take out the shark. And we're just kind of sitting here. I let him, dump mana into the draw card to hopefully Wandering Emperor resolves what they do, so we're able to take out the Ascendant Spirit, continue blocking the Wandering Emperor with the Shark token. We do have access to Memory Deluge. The game's not over. We're doing okay. Again, it's possible I'm playing a little too fast and loose with our non-counter magic spells, especially since we have 2 Foretold cards, but we aren't punished there. Main phase Memory Deluge to get around counter magic, maybe hit our land drops and all that stuff, because these land drops are super important. Unfortunately, the land drop was a tapped land, and being untapped would have been great with the Foretold card. So that feels really bad. But we still have a solid blocker, so we're sitting okay. Otawara would be super annoying. We were sitting pretty. I'm like, oh my god, he's attacking. Like, let's just to kill the Wandering Emperor. Let's block. But obviously, he has another Spectral Sailor. And hitting this extra Shark Typhoon is really nice because we're able to leave counter magic up while threatening the shark and maybe even sniping the Spectral Sailor with the shark. At this point, they have just a million cards, which is totally, totally miserable. And they're getting ready to jam for a million. I do decide to just Shark Typhoon because I'm afraid of counter magic, because the shark can take this thing out. And I decide to take out the Spectral Sailor instead of the Rattle Chains, because if we just deal with the Rattle Chains, which we have ability to deal with it in hand, which is the Wandering Emperor, which actually works out for us, because we're able to finally use that extra Sock coming. See, it was planned. The extra Sock coming to stop the Rattle Chains from protecting it with the Wandering Emperor. Now they're drawing no more cards. Now we're back to the point we were at a million turns ago, except for the Otawara and the temporary lockdown. So they get a million cards back, and I believe we are dead on board. So unfortunately, we lose that. Oh, no. No, we aren't dead on board. Yeah, we're dead. Yeah, we're just dead. Because if we temporary lockdown, he just kills us with Faceless Haven. Oh my god, I was like, whoa, did I misremember this? Unfortunately, that one misplay or whatever, like, totally lost us this game. Which, pay attention when you're playing on Magic Online, it's just like Paper Magic, in that sense. And we almost pulled it back. Like, we're so close to pulling it back. Feels so bad. Going to game 2, this is a fine hand, has removal, has that counter magic, like Wandering Emperor is really good against the Spirit stack. Just gotta move on. They don't have a turn 1 play, which is amazing for us, because now we have the Censor. That's great. They end step Spectral Sailor, and we say, no way, Spectral Sailor, get out of here. Goodbye. Peace. Please don't. Thank you. And they Shacklegeist. So now we're in a spot where we can either march Shacklegeist, or Censor. They combat research, so we attempt to march. Of course, it gets counterspelled. However, with that counterspell, they only draw 1 extra card, and then we can just untap and Wandering Emperor it down. And just not really worry about it. They could have another Geistlight Snare, which would be really, really unfortunate. In that sense, in drawing the Shark Typhoon, I figured just like blocking is better anyway, because it can't be counterspelled. So I just flash in, and we just block, which is just feels really good. And just play their 1/1 and move on. Drawing that Farewell feels really good. We just played it to Teferi. It gets another Geistlight Snare, so that means we played perfect with the Shark Typhoon versus the Wandering Emperor, which feels really good. Unfortunately, this Mausoleum Wanderer makes Farewell a little awkward. However, we do have this Wandering Emperor with Censor backup. Not that Censor is doing a lot right here. So we Wandering Emperor in an attempt to take out this 1/1, take out the card that can stop the Farewell, and now we have Farewell. So now if they commit any more to the board, which they have to stop Wandering Emperor, it means we can just like Farewell, it's over. But they I gotta slow down. The game's getting a little bit ahead of me talking. But they played the extra Mausoleum Wanderer, which meant we can't Farewell, so that was frustrating. But then I just ripped the Supreme Verdict, and Mausoleum Wanderer can't counter an uncounterable spell. So now we're just sitting with a Farewell now, so we're even better off. And a Planeswalker that's allowed to hang out, which also feels very good. We just just attack in. You got it. I'm just making sure you don't cast anything. At that point, I just go, okay, like, I guess it's time to farewell. It feels really bad with these absorbs hanging out in my hand. Since you didn't cast any spells. And of course I get punished with Spectral Sailor. I should have just hung out. I should have just kept plussing and just let stuff happen with the absorbs, hit my land drops. But so now we're in a rough spot. Our deck bails us out with temporary lockdown. And then this is where the game kind of ends because we're able to just leave absorb up for the rest of the game. And they didn't know about the absorbs, but I think they realized they were burnt out and conceded. So we didn't play Super Slick Farewell anyway, literally one thing, and then being punished with the one card that's good against us. But, sometimes your deck bails you out when you play 4 of a card. So going into game 3 in this matchup where I'm playing just horribly, this is a pretty solid opening hand. We keep it. We have the counter magic. We have endgame. In fact, endgame that is like unreal too. Just shock in because we can Mystical Dispute and Cycle Sensor, which feels really good. Get out of here, Mausoleum Wanderer. Please get out of here. They play another, so that like now things are a little awkward, right? I mean, we're gonna have to pump through these Mausoleum Wanderers. We have access to Sensor and Mystical Dispute though, so like we can continue making life hard for our opponent. Just cycle the Sensor, hit our land drops. Everything's going great. Now we have access to Absorb and Mystical Dispute, and we can get around the double Mausoleum Wanderer with the Mystical Dispute, which we do with the Rattle Chains. So that feels really, really good. Just really awkward. Such an awkward period of cards. And they're able to apply pressure, unfortunately. Just feels really, really bad. Right now we're just like trying to hit our Supreme Verdict. We just cycle. Shark Typhoon is also excellent, but we do hit our Supreme Verdict. So now, but it doesn't matter anymore now that we got Shark Typhoon. So now we're just kind of let him commit to the board, be able to block things with Shark Typhoon. Like we're doing really good. We're not in threat. We're not in danger of dying. Like everything's okay. We bring in a shark. Like see if they want to do anything about it. We're able to start blocking. We really should only pull the trigger on Supreme Verdict if we really need to. They apply even more to the board, and so now we're just like sweet Supreme Verdict. We get to 3 for 1U. Everything's great. They are able to slip out the back though, and we don't have the counter spell to stop it. So you only have 1 Mausoleum Wanderer, which is annoying but is fine. Combat research on it is less fine because now we're going to 2. So okay, now we need some things to work out. So in drawing the temporary lockdown, it means we can have access to Absorb. So that draw was the only thing that made us live because they had Geistlight Snare, which is really amazing. That being said, I actually made a kind of weird play here. I could have just paid for the Geistlight Snare, but if they have like Spell Pierce or something to follow it up, to continue countering temporary lockdown, I was just dead on board because I was at 2. So I instead decided to absorb the Geistlight Snare because in that scenario, if it resolves, I'm at a healthier life total and I'm looking at my hand and I just really just plan on tapping out every single turn. That being said, they have the Spectral Sailor but don't have the mana to activate it, so that feels really, really good. And now we're at a point, we're able to just like continue 1 for 1ing with our opponent, foretell a draw spell, be able to hang out with the Wandering Emperor. I mean, we're not doing good though. Like we're back down to 3. Things are not solid. We are not doing good. I'm really afraid of counter magic though. So instead of just casting the Dream Trawler into a counter spell, which I just died to, I decide to Behold the Beyond into a hopefully into a Supreme Verdict or something to kill this guy. And we hit our temporary lockdown because I felt like it was a better chance for me to hit Supreme Verdict or something that really mattered. And then them not having a counterspell. But I do that. They didn't have the counterspell anyway, or maybe they only had Spell Pierce. So we had temporary lockdown. That's totally okay. We could have just Dream Trawlered that last turn, but it worked out for us. Beyond the Multiverse was really, really kind to us in hitting the temporary lockdown, and we win the game. So we ended up 3-2ing that league. I had some questionable plays, especially against the Spirits deck, but my deck bailed me out. I got pretty lucky against the Spirits deck. But the Blue-White Control deck, it is just your classic Blue-White Control, and it's really exciting that exists now, arguably at Tier 1, maybe Tier 1.5 in Pioneer. Again, if you're interested in a little bit more of a deep dive into the deck and either deck techs or sideboard guides, I posted those on my channel as well. You can check either deck tech, sideboard guide, or the Pioneer playlist that they are on. In any case, if you like this video, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.